Good day everyone, I am Jana Maikapi Aguilar and today I am going to discuss to you the 1935 Constitution. So the 1935 Constitution of the Philippines, which created the Commonwealth of the Philippines, was based on the principle of separation of powers among the three branches of the government. So the three branches of the government are the executive power, the legislative power, and the judicial power. So first, I am going to define what is legislative power. So the legislative branch is the power to make laws. The cornerstone of their work should always be to serve the people. Hence, they must ensure that their laws do so. It has the right to appoint specific figures into office. This branch is responsible for holding the executive accountable. Citizens elect the legislators through elections. In general, we can find a single or multi-house system. For example, a House of Representative or Assembly and a Senate. Together, the two houses form a parliament. Second, we have the executive power. So, the primary goal of the executive is to enforce the law, and hence they administrate the state through a series of offices and organizations. However, they also have the mandate to issue some orders. The central figures of the executive are the head state and the head of the government. Based on the system, this can be one person or two. Further, the government makes up ministers that control given areas like the armed forces, healthcare, finance, and so on. Lastly, the executive branch is held accountable by the legislative power. They gain confidence through the parliament. And lastly, we have the judicial power. So the judicial power is a system of independent courts. The primary function is to interpret the law, and secondly, to apply the law in court. There are two options: a dispute between two citizens or between the state and the citizens. Hence, it decides on guilt and punishment. Another crucial function of judicial power is to control the executive and legislative power. It can declare law or orders unconstitutional. That is the authority of a constitutional or Supreme Court. The 1935 Constitution was written in 1934, approved and adopted by the Commonwealth of the Philippines in 1935 to 1946, and later used by the Third Republic to 1946 to 1972. So it was written in an eye to meeting the approval of the United States government as well, so as to ensure that the U.S. would live up to its promise to grant the Philippines independence and not have a premise to hold onto its position on the grounds that it was too politically immature and hence unready for full, real independence. Before 1934, approval of Tidings-Medellin law, known as the Philippine Independence Act by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. March 25, 1935, approval by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. July 4, 1946, Tidings-Medellin law is provided for the establishment of a 10-year interim government by Filipinos, preparatory to the granting of the Philippine independence. May 5, 1935, approval by the Philippine legislature of a bill calling a constitutional convention as provided for an independence law. February 8, 1935, agreed on the final draft of the Constitution after having deliberated for several months, approval by the convention by a vote of 177 to 1 of the institution. March 23, 1935, Constitution was certified by U.S. President Roosevelt. Ratification of the Constitution by Filipino electorate by a vote of 1,213,046 with 44,963 against. May 14, 1935, it was ratified by the Filipino people by a plebiscite. And November 15, 1935, the Commonwealth of the Philippines was inaugurated with Manuel L. Quezon and Sir Sergio Osmeña Sr. as President and Vice President. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Constitution was approved by President Franklin D. Roosevelt on March 23, 1935 in conformity to the Tidings-Medellín Act. On May 14, 1935, it was ratified by the Filipino people through a plebiscite. So next we have the President Manuel L. Quezon. So Manuel L. Quezon was a member of the majority from the split of the Democrata and Nacionalista Party. They were the ones who rejected the hair hose cutting bill, which is supposed to be the first law that would set the specific date of the Philippine independence. He then brought in from the United States the Tidings-McDuffie Act. This is almost the same as the hair hose cutting bill with slight differences. Next, we have President Claro M. Recto. So, Claro M. Recto was the president of the 1935 Constitutional Convention, the organization that is responsible for the fundamental law of the land, the Constitution. Together with the Senate President Quezon, Recto presented the Commonwealth Constitution to U.S. President Roosevelt. Here are the articles under the 1935 Constitution. First, we have the Article 1, the National Territory. Article 2, the Declaration of Principle. Article 3 is the Bill of Rights. Article 4 is the Citizenship. Article number 5 is the Suffrage. And Article 6 is the Legislative Department. Article 7 is the Executive Department. Article 8 is the Judicial Department. Article 9 is the Impeachment. Article 10 is the General Auditing Office. Article 11 is the Civil Service. Article 12 is the Conservation and Utilization of National Resources. Article 13 is the General Provision. Article 14 is the Amendments. Article 15 is the Transitory Provision. Article 16 is the Special Provisions effective upon the proclamation of the independence of the Philippines. Article 7 is the Commonwealth and the Republic.
Good day everyone, my name is Cheryl May P. Cantaderos and we will be talking about the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. So let's define Commonwealth. Commonwealth is also known as independent country or community. So the background of 1935 Constitution is provided the legal basis of the Commonwealth government, which was considered the transition government before the granting of the Philippine independence with American-inspired constitution. Philippine government would eventually pattern its government system after American government. Preamble of Commonwealth Constitution. The Filipino people imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideals, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare, and secure themselves and their posterity the blessings of independence under a regime of justice, liberty, and democracy to ordain and promulgate this Constitution. The next is Tidings-McDuffie Act approved by President Franklin Roosevelt in United States. President Franklin Roosevelt is certifying the first Constitution of the Philippines on March 25, 1935, and after a transitional Filipino government and 202 elected delegates crafted a constitution for the new Commonwealth starting in 1934. It was officially ratified May 14, 1935. Constitution should certain provision to define relation between Philippines and U.S. during Commonwealth and establishment of Philippine Republic. In February 27, 1945, it was effective upon the re-establishment of Commonwealth government. July 4, 1946, inauguration of the Republic of the Philippines. In 1935, Constitution did not contain original ideas. Dominate influence from Constitution of U.S., Malolo's Constitution in the three organic laws in force in the Philippines before tied McDuffie Law. 1935 Constitution had been amended 3 times. A. Establishing a bicameral legislature. B. Allowing the re-eligibility of the President and the Vice President for a second 4-year term of office. C. Creating a separate commission on election. D. Parity amendment, which gave to American citizens equal right of the Filipinos in the exploitation of our natural resources and the operation in public utilities. That's all. Thank you and God bless.